and thanks for joining us. It's Chris Ward here with AbundantYogi.com, the nourishing training grounds for yogis, coaches, and other heart-centered entrepreneurs who really just want to do what they love in a sustainable way without burning out or selling out, and still want that work to fund the lifestyle of their choice. Alchemy is a series of interviews that I do with people who I consider to be true alchemists, who've made nothing short of magic happen in their lives and careers. Here is what the alchemists that I interview have in common. It's 5 unmistakable things. Number 1, they're very real, unassuming, raw. What you see is what you get. Number 2, they are deeply connected to their own heart, which connects them to the hearts of others. Number 3, they are here to serve, and it shows. Number 4, they are here to design a life, not just make a living. And number 5, they are doing work that they love, that truly represents who they are at their core, and creating quite the ripple effect in the world as a result. In these interviews, you'll get a little taste of how they've done it, what they've learned along the way, how you can practice alchemy in your own life and business in your flavor and style. Okay, so today I feel so incredibly privileged to be interviewing Victoria Prozan McGlinn of VictoriaPM.com. She is on a mission to unleash your imagination into the 4 corners of life and business. As the creator of the Superlux naming experience, she teaches clients to take their business vision and turn it into a potent, stand above the fray language that generates energy everywhere it goes. Victoria draws on her professional experiences in both design and client relations to offer creative insights and uncommon perspectives that make your brand pop and your clients swoon. She believes in your innate creative power, that it is the key to unlocking your potential. When you allow yourself to stand in that full spectrum, your world is illuminated from the inside out. I could go on. You can probably already see why I'm digging on Victoria so much, but we will go ahead and say hi to her so you can hear directly from her. Victoria, I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I am super excited about this.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I've got some questions that I can't wait to ask you. I was telling you right before this interview that I do these interviews for selfish reasons most of the time because I love getting to hang with some of my favorite people on the planet that are doing good things and inspiring me, and this is one of the best ways I get to network and rub shoulders with some amazing people. So, yeah, super thrilled to have you here.
Awesome. Well, if you can be selfish, so to speak, and still, create a platform to spread good work, spread good messages, then that's a win-win.
Yes. And I am ridiculously selfish about how I run my business and what I talk about and what I do. So that's a good sign. Thank you for that confirmation. So we are just so excited to hear all about you, to hear more of your story, to find out what you've got cooking lately, what you're most excited about. And I'm so thrilled to talk about the Superlux naming experience because even people inside of my community, that's actually how I heard about you, is that people inside of some of my programs were passing you around as a reference, saying, hey, those of you who are stuck with naming your brand, you really don't want to get it wrong. You want to make sure you get the right one just for you. You've got to talk to Victoria. So that's how I found you, actually. It's an awesome thing.
Well, that's great to hear. Yeah. That's great to hear. And it does come down to that. You want to find what you just said. You want to find the right one for you.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait to dig into that a little bit more. So let's go there second. First, okay. I just want to talk about you and sort of how this came to be, how you came to be a business storyteller. How did you know this was the thing for you?
I didn't, actually. I have a very long and winding road that got me here. I do have a pretty extensive background in both customer service and client relations, kind of going back to the beginning of my career. Mm-hmm. And when I was in college, I also did some photography. So I had some visual communication in my background, but like many college graduates, even though this was the last recession, when I went out into the real world, I found that my degree was not really serving me in the way that I had intended. And so that's when I kind of got into client relations and customer service and really did that for quite a while. And I reached a point where I knew I wanted to have my own business. I come from an entrepreneurial family, so it's in my blood. And I've known for a long time that's what I wanted to do, but I didn't really know how I was going to make that happen. Like I knew, I just didn't know what I wanted my business to be. I just knew that was my end game. And at a certain point, I kind of became frustrated with where I was in my career, and I knew that it was time to at least start down that path. And I knew that some design skills would be handy for me. So what I did was I enrolled in a 2-year degree at a technical college local to where I am, with the intention of just taking a couple classes to kind of get a feel for, what I could learn and kind of move on. And once I got into the program, I kind of realized that I'd always been a designer, and I just didn't have that language. And it was really a kind of a connection back to my photography from, when I was in college the first time. And something really just came alive in me. And I feel like I found, I started to find the language that I had kind of been lacking for myself. And I started to find some confidence in that. And strangely, even though I'm coming out of a design and visual communication degree, what I really found was the words themselves really appealed to me. Something that I really focused a lot on when I was doing design was typography. I love fonts, I love words, and but nothing really clicked in my head as far as how this was going to sort of fan out in the future. But I just really kind of got into that and just kind of let that sit. And so when I finished my degree, that was my intention all along, was to start my business. So my very first business, which this business that I'm in is my second iteration. Like many entrepreneurs, right out of the gate, like what I was doing was not working. So my first business was really a design business. I was an artist. I silk-screened textiles at home. I had a studio in-house. And I really spent a lot of time doing that, and I loved it. But for me, it was not the right fit, in that the business model was not going to help me pursue my dreams in the long run. Yeah. It really took me a few years to kind of realize that I was not on the right track. And when that happened, to be honest, it was devastating to me, because here was something that I thought was everything that I wanted in life, and I couldn't make it work. Yeah. But yet there was still something in me that knew part of me was on the right path. Yeah. I just wasn't. So I sort of took a step back, and I really looked fully at all of the skills that I had. I thought about, what is it that I can really offer to the world? And I tried to take my ego out of it as much as I could, and I tried to turn it around and come from a place of service. Of what do I have to offer? How can I help others in a way that I'm probably not understanding, that I have that ability to do? So I started with my new business with this idea of helping people do creative brainstorming. And sometimes when you step back and you're open and you pay attention to what the universe is sending you, you can make some quick progress. And what I realized was a lot of people were coming to me and asking me for helps with names and taglines and things like that. Yeah. And my first thought was, well, that's strange. That doesn't seem that difficult. There was a little bit of a disconnect in the beginning of why do people need this kind of help? And when I stopped sort of questioning and just started paying attention, I realized that this was an opportunity for me. Mm-hmm. And so I developed this offering, the Superlux naming experience, around the understanding that this was something that really people struggled with. Yeah. And while there's a lot of information out there about branding, I found a little bit of a disconnect for myself personally, because I think I want people to understand that it can be an organic process that comes from the inside out. Mm-hmm. And that's something I wasn't seeing reflected. So that's sort of the long story of how I got to this place. I never would have set out to say, oh, I'm going to help people name their businesses or their products or create tech. I don't think I would have set that as my goal, but
Yeah.
I just paid attention along the way, and that's where I ended up, and I love it.
Well, and it happens with so many of us, you know, it's especially those of us who are both seekers and entrepreneurs, you know, that are on this path of lucrative self-realization, if you will, you know, how to just be more true to ourselves and be us, the true authentic us, and thrive in the world and make a difference with our gifts and still pay the bills and still fund the lifestyle that we want. There, it tends to be like, it just exactly like you described it, where we start out on one path and then it takes a turn, and so there has to be a second and a third and maybe even a fourth iteration of our businesses as we just feel our way through. And a lot of times what happens is exactly what happened to you, where the right sort of niche market that is very narrow and strong, very specific, oftentimes will find you if you're paying attention. Mm-hmm. So I love what you said about it being a very organic inside-out process. Can you speak more to that? What do you mean by organic inside-out process to find the perfect name for you and your business?
Sure. Well, what I really want my clients and anybody that I work with to walk away with is this idea that, you know, I like to use the analogy of you can have the most beautiful dress in the world on a hanger. You know, it can be sitting there and it looks gorgeous and it's like, oh, it's perfect. But if you put it on and it doesn't fit right and it doesn't feel right to you, it's not beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And I think it's the same thing with branding and with language and all of those things. And so what I encourage people to do is to start out from a place of giving yourself credit for all of the accomplishments that you have achieved. You know, and come from a place of kindness to yourself, and you know, kind of muster up as much confidence as you have in any particular moment, and there. And my work is really about trying to pull the threads out from who you are that are really what are going to make you shine in the world. Mm-hmm. And you know, to dig into that and understand that, you know, the right answers aren't out there. They're in you, and you just have to, you know, do a little digging around. You got to do a little exploring. But then when you start to feel it, and you know, when you tap into your intuition, I think that makes that process so much easier. When you start to find it, you have to really have the confidence to stand in that a little bit. I like to call it embracing your inner Steve Jobs. You know,
yeah.
You know, when we're talking about names, I like to say to people, in 1976, the idea of naming a computer company Apple was so counterintuitive to, you know, where culture was at that time. You know, IBM was probably the only known computer company, and home computers weren't even, I mean, those words weren't even that well known. So he did something that was visionary. And at the time, I don't know that a lot of people probably understood it, but when you see the trajectory and how he sort of made that happen, you know, it seems really easy in hindsight to say, oh, well, that was a genius move. But, you know, you kind of have to stand in that and own it and say, you know what, I'm not going to let these words define me. Mm-hmm. I'm going to define these words. Mm-hmm. And that's really at the heart of what I want people to understand, you know, especially when we're talking about a brand name, it's one thing. But then when you start figuring in domain names, which, you know, obviously they're much harder to come by, you think, oh, like this is great, and someone's got it already. Yeah. So you can sort of push yourself into that territory that's a little bit more unexplored, mm-hmm. but yet still excites you, that there's so much potential there, and that you need to own it instead of letting it define you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's huge, because it's one of the main things that I've seen people struggle with. And to get really specific, because I know this is your area of genius, and I really want to go deep here, what I see a lot is more of an external spinning. There's a grasping for getting the right name. Not right as in it fits, it aligns with me, it makes something in my core just vibrate. You know, not necessarily that, but more like, is this what the market needs? Is this what will be hip? You know, is this what people will receive and appreciate? And is this what will draw the biggest crowd to me? So I oftentimes see there's a little bit too much of an external focus and not enough really trusting ourselves and that inner voice. So when you see that happening with your own clients, how do you help them really do that deep dive inward?
Well, okay, so we've sort of talked about the beginning of how we can get into the brand that's really going to be right for us.
Yeah.
And I think the next step that I really encourage people to do, and I think what you're talking about, is this idea that I see a lot of people describing what they do. And what I to see people do is like inspiring people with what they do, especially when we're talking about your brand. Because I think, let's talk about a brand tagline. I think a lot of times people feel like, oh, my tagline has to, one, explain to everybody exactly what I do. And believe me, there is definitely a need to be clear, and we can talk about that later. But I think for a brand tagline, to me, its job, in my opinion, its job is to create some intrigue and some curiosity and some excitement. So that when it lands on your site or comes across it in social media or, in a write-up somewhere or whatever, it causes them to pause because, obviously we live in an ADD culture where everything's coming at us a million miles an hour. And if you can create some language that says something, even if it's not like clear, but it evokes an emotional response in them, that's your traction. And I think that when it comes to brand taglines, that's not to say that, it should be completely abstract and not have any sense at all. But that if you can sort of walk that fine line between bringing some description in that kind of grounds it, but also making it feel good to somebody.
Yeah.
And kind of seeing, too, that the brand name and the tagline I see them as two puzzle pieces that should fit together.
Yeah.
So, don't just necessarily create your brand name and then create a tagline that doesn't have anything to do with it. Like, I really want to see them having some interplay because I think that's when you bring that dimensional quality to the branded language itself.
Yeah. And oftentimes helping them to feel good. And I love that you brought up that piece because, the only reason that any of us take any step forward or reach for a goal or anything, the only reason we're ever in action is because we believe that in the getting of or the receiving of, the accomplishing of what it is that we're trying to do, that we will feel better, right? So that's always the motivation behind every single action or project or goal or aspiration is we believe we will feel better in the having of it or the getting of it, the experiencing of it. So that's huge because that's what moves people to action is really helping them understand that they will feel better. And what I found is that what helps them to get that hit, that feel-good hit, and to wake up and to be inspired by something, branding or a tagline or what have you, is that if it's very, very specific to them and to how they're wired and to their needs, and oftentimes solving their biggest concern or frustration or problem. Is that what you found as well? And is that what you oftentimes help your clients to realize and to word correctly so that it comes across in the right way? And it's just as though if I'm the customer, that you're speaking directly to me and it feels really nourishing, like you're meeting me where I'm at.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, and this is where that storytelling piece comes in because that's how humans have communicated forever. We communicate through story. And when I say story, it doesn't have to be a complete narrative, of course.
Yeah.
It's when you're bringing in all of that, and it's something that, I like to, my first sort of point when I'm working with people is I like to say, let's kind of forget the word branding. I think branding is it's misunderstood, one, because I think we kind of focus on the externals of the, pretty pictures and the nice words, and I think there's brand than just those two things. But two, it's your message. Your business is your platform. And when you have someone's attention, when you have an audience, it all comes down to what do you want to say to them?
Yeah.
I think that if you can kind of step back and look at it from that point of view of what do I have to say to the world? What do I want my work to say to the world?
Yeah.
Why am I so passionate about this? And reframe it, then it feels a little bit more empowering and not so like, oh, the experts know better than me.
Right.
I don't believe the experts know better.
Yeah.
I believe that there's a balance, but that in essence, you know, you have, like, again, coming back to that dress, you have to wear it. So it's good to you. And you know that when it feels good to you, you go out into the world and you generate energy because you're excited to talk about what you do. You're excited to, you know, communicate that to people. And it's that energy that you create by using the right words. That's what attracts people to you.
Yeah.
That is in essence what it all comes down to.
I love that. And you've mentioned in the very beginning of the interview, the selfish piece. You know, if you can really be selfish in how you design your business and how you share your message and really speaking about the things that light you up, you know, the conversation you want to be contributing to every day, the message that you have to share because it's important to you. You know, it is a selfishness, and that is also the self-trust piece. Rather than looking out there for what the experts are saying and trying to measure up, it's really doing that inner exploration, that archaeological dig to the heart of what it is that you have to offer, and sharing that in a really courageous way.
And there is nothing more attractive than somebody who's like enthusiastic and passionate about what they do.
That's so true. So true. Yeah, they can fumble up the words, but it's the energy that comes through that just feels so real, and it's palpable. It's contagious. So agree with that. And switching subjects, I was looking at your blog right before the interview, and I was just, you know, getting ready, and I saw a blog post that you read. I loved what you said about busyness getting a bad rap. So have you been successful in sort of accepting the busy, but leaving behind so much of the frantic reaction that has to do with having a lot of things to do? Yeah, well, any tips you can give us on that?
I'm working on it, and that's actually one of the things I didn't take a lot of time off last year, and I was happy, you know, my business was new, and I wanted to, you know, get some forward motion kind of thing. And I took some time off for the holidays. And then I found when I came back within a couple weeks, I felt like I was kind of just right back to where I was before I took my break. And I was like, you know what? This is not how I want my business to run. This is not how I want my life to run. And I have made a conscious effort to step back and to give myself a little bit more space to create. One of the things that I know, you know, kind of going back to my, you know, my design background and the more creative part of who I am, is that I need time and space in order to create properly.
Yes.
And I realized that I was caught in the hurry, and, you know, and I don't mind being busy because I am somebody who I can make progress when I'm paying attention, but what I hate is that feeling of hurry, you know.
Yeah.
I love getting up in the morning and going and working out. I love getting up in the morning and making my green juice. I love doing these things, but I hate when I'm in a hurry and I feel like I'm just trying to get this done so I can get to the next thing. And so that's one of the things that I really want to focus on. And I want to, you know, kind of coupling with that, I want to bring in that idea of play into my business more, because I know that counterintuitively, when you slow down and you allow yourself that space to just do something that feels quote unquote not productive, that's gonna give you so much more energy, and it's gonna give you so many more ideas. And in a lot of ways, I feel like it gives me that clarity and confidence to say, oh wait, hey, yeah, I forgot. I was so distracted. I forgot this is my path.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So true. And I'm with you on that 100%. It is really about knowing ourselves and knowing our wiring and knowing our strengths and our weaknesses. And I am so with you on that piece. My husband knows, whatever you do, just don't rush me. If you do not want to have to deal with crazy bitch woman, don't rush me. I need my time. I need my space. I need my own access to my own creativity, my own impulse moving me forward inside of me. Like if I'm rushed, I have zero access to any of that. And then I feel kind of powerless and kind of pissed off at whoever's rushing me. So I totally get that. And you just answered the question And I was going to ask you next, which is, what is your number one best tip or insight or strategy that you can give our viewers for helping them to feel more confident and more clear? And you basically said, slow down, don't rush, step back if you need to, give yourself permission to do the counterintuitive thing and have that playful time versus, succumbing to the hurry. So what's your number two best tip or strategy for cultivating confidence and clarity as a business owner?
Well, first of all, I'm a firm believer that we are all creative. Like, I know that there are people right now who are hearing this saying, but I'm not. But you are. And but if you reframe how you think of creativity, you'll see that, one, if you're an entrepreneur, you're creating a business, therefore you're creative. Mm-hmm. We have families, we have homes, we cook, we have gardens. There's so many different ways that we express that creative energy in our lives that if we don't know how to paint, or we don't know how to play the guitar, or we don't know how to do these certain skills, that we're not creative. And that's not true. So I think when you start to kind of own that creative energy, and you start to direct it a little bit more, I find for me that's when I do feel more confident and that have that clarity, because I start to understand it's a different way of embracing your voice. It's, I have something to say, and yes, it can be scary to open up and to say it, or to create it, or to do whatever. But when I give myself that space to understand that it's going on, then it's like, oh, well, okay, then I can sort of manifest this if I'm willing to just keep at it, so to speak.
Yeah. And there's another question that I always ask. This one is standard to every interview that I do in the Alchemy series. And I'm excited to get your piece on this. What do you feel is the single most important mindset to employ if you really want to design a life versus just making a living?
I think for me, the lesson that I've had to learn, and this was one of the things I learned through my other business, like sometimes people have problems with calling it a failure, because I understand that nothing is a failure, we learn. But from my failure is that I was so preoccupied with knowing and sort of figuring out the destination.
Yeah.
Not like I was forcing something that didn't need to be forced.
Yeah.
And what I understand now when it comes to manifesting what I want is I don't have to know how it's going to happen.
Yes.
I don't have to know how I'm going to get there.
Yeah.
I just have to believe, and I have to take consistent action. I have to be doing things on a regular basis that are really, there might be fog in front of me, but I still know I can take a step forward. I can see that far, and to keep going with that. And again, kind of coming back to this my superluxemia experience, I never would have been able to say, oh, I'm going to help people name things. And I can see now in hindsight, I never would have made this like linear path to where I've ended up.
Yes.
Because I basically fell down and got a little bit more humility about me and was willing to be open. That's how I found it. And so now I really try to remind myself that as I start new ventures and as I start new ideas, and remember, you don't have to know how, you just have to keep believing and doing. Mm-hmm.
And it also sounds like you have to be willing to be cracked wide open.
Yeah. And it hurts sometimes, but they're valuable lessons, and couldn't have it any other way.
Yeah.
I could never have gotten to where I am right now without those lessons. So.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Victoria. This has been such a treat. I just want to give you the floor for one last minute. Any closing thoughts you want to share, or any last minute reminders about how our viewers can get more from you?
Sure. So you can find me at victoriapm.com. And my primary offering is the Superluxemia experience. So it's really about helping you find the right names and taglines for your brand, for your products, really any part of your business that needs branded language. I'm not a copywriter, but I think of it as really, if there are places that you need like concentrated bits of language that are really specific to you and your brand, that's where I can really help you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So an experience because it's sort of a process that taps into who you are, and I think I say on my website that if I could have balloons involved, I would, but I haven't figured that one out yet. But I really want people to know that it can be fun, like that these are things that feel really heavy because so much rests on these things. But if you come at it from a place of fun, you'll get to where you're going and you'll enjoy the process.
Perfect. So, awesome. So VictoriaPM.com, you guys go check her out. Check out the Superlux naming experience. And Victoria, thank you again.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. If you are new to Abundant Yogi and you share this same ache for the freedom and the abundance to be authentically you in life and in business. In other words, if you just want to do what you love without burning out or selling out and you still want to have your work fund the lifestyle of your choice, then make sure that you subscribe so that I can spoil you rotten with more interviews like this one, juicy insights and tips on lucrative self-realization, mindful marketing, and living true. Plus, when you subscribe, you'll get a free taste of my lifestyle design video training series entitled Do It for the Love and the Money. So head over there now, hook yourself up, and then I will see you soon. Have a beautiful day.